Hey guys, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks, and this time I'm playing in the Tier 8 Japanese medium tank, the STA-1. But this video isn't necessarily about the STA-1, it's about the fact that sometimes you just gotta tell World of Tanks, not today, right? When you're in this kind of a matchup, a platoon of completely balanced E25s on the enemy team, very competent players there, a platoon of unicorns, and then a solo unicorn playing a Patriot, which of course is a completely balanced premium tank as well. Sometimes you might not have the platoons of unicorns on your team, but you can still use the start of the game to formulate a plan to still give yourself the best possible chance. And for that, it's immediately noticing that they are going to have the mobility advantage. They're going to have the medium tank advantage. Even the Patriot might make his way over towards the south to be able to defend that part of the Sacred Valley map. So I've told my team, don't go south. I said that in capitals. Let's win the north, because the south is going to be overwhelmed by the mobility on the enemy team. Looking at our setup, I'm pretty much the only medium tank that probably could make their way south, apart from the tanks that are 2 tiers lower than me. And so by going south, it would be absolutely suicidal if I was to go there by myself. I expect that the T-34-3 and the E-25s would just spot me and rip me apart in record time. So instead, I'm going to work with my team. I'm going to try and work with those top tier heavies, who maybe only have 45% wins between them, but that doesn't matter as long as you can support them, and hopefully then you can enable them to have a more positive impact in the game than they otherwise would have. And so immediately we can see that no one on our team has gone towards the south, not even the tier 6 medium tanks that most likely would love to be rushing up there. I'm not sure if they listened to me. I think it would be a bit of a bold claim to say that they listened. But you know what, if one player on your team you can wake the sense up in them that maybe, yeah, okay, we shouldn't go south. You know, they rationalize it, they see that they have an overwhelming medium tank advantage, and instead stay with you on the north, then you're increasing your chance to win effectively. So here's that Patriot that I was talking about. Indeed, he didn't make his way to the south. But firstly, I'm going to finish off the ELC AMX, you know, that little support tank. Let's take him down. Now we're going to hopefully put one into the lower plate of the Patriot. There we go. But now I am going to be loading heat ammunition. Now the STA-1 does have good standard rounds with 218 millimeters of penetration. But, you know, this is a completely balanced tier 8 premium heavy tank, and I have absolutely no problem with dabbing that 2 key to get the 275 millimeters of penetration to start to really go through his upper plate. And I think I do have a rate of, I think we're about even on rate of fire. This tank firing 8 rounds a minute, and I think the Patriot is pretty much just about the same. So we've taken him out, and as we can see, the enemy team indeed did go for the hill, and they completely dominated it. But that platoon of E-25 seems to be rather aggressive right now, going into an IS-6, and they're losing their hit points for it. And while we have lost the south, it hasn't really benefited the enemy team at all. Sure, they managed to probably get into base and take out the solo artillery on our team, but just look at the progress that we made up the north. We got to take out 2 tier 8 heavy tanks, a tier 5 support, and we haven't lost a single tank, although they have lost significant hit points. I'm sure that if I'd made my way to the south, I would have died there for pretty much no benefit. Tier 8 medium tanks are renowned for having poor DPM, and you're not going to get anything from it. You're going to trade your hit points fairly equally, or even below equally with an E25, especially if they're in a platoon. So right now, I'm really worried about the enemies progressing into base, and so I want to be aggressive. That's why I took the bull by the horn, so to say, and went straight after that T28 prototype, so then I could flank this T-34-3. And now one very interesting thing is going to happen. This T-34-3 is clearly a very competent player, and he doesn't want to shoot anyone apart from me. And by going in my third person, I can see that he was focusing his gun on my location and only popping around the corner when he fired, or I could clearly see that he was aiming at somebody else, thus distracting him and enabling my team to be able to get through that situation without losing many or if any of their hit points. So now we've turned it into a north-south fight. We've won the north, the enemies have won the south, and that is completely beneficial for our kind of lineup. Medium tanks and light tanks have the advantage over a heavy lineup if they manage to get their sides and their rear. But if you can stop them from flanking, and it doesn't matter if you've got the less DPM on your team, and then you can turn and face the thick part of your tank towards your opponents, as effectively all of our team are doing right now, then the advantage of the enemy team that has made this a 30%er, and the fact they've got multiple unicorns on the enemy team, and platoons of completely balanced tanks like E25s certainly isn't going to matter. So an IS-6 has been spotted making his way towards the AMX M449, and he's on a good amount of hit points, but the T29 on my team is doing some certainly good work here as he takes out the T150. Now this E25 is advancing. Will I be able to find a shot on the E25? But I want to put some rounds into this IS-6 if I can. But the IS-6 has got great armor, and even the 218mm of penetration are going to struggle to be able to go through the side, and loading heat probably wouldn't do that much more good just because of the spaced armor that the IS-6 will be absorbing those rounds as well. Now we can see that the IS-6 is making a beeline straight towards me, and so I want to avoid him. If I get caught right there, I'm probably going to put one round into him and he's going to finish me off. Instead, what I want to do is I want to kite him, I want to distract him, I want to lure him into an ambush where this T29 is, and hopefully the T29 can help me take on the IS-6. Using the mobility of my medium tank, I'm effectively taking the super unicorn on the enemy team out of this fight, and now that we've lulled him into that position, I can instead flank this E25 who is going after this Tiger. But he uses his excellent mobility to vault up over that ridge line, and I think the E25 is going to flank around and instead try and come for me now that I've been spotted. Now I'm going to keep my gun pointed one way. One benefit of a turret is that you can drive one way and shoot the other. The E25 certainly didn't expect that, and we managed to shut him down. And you know what? Hats off to the T29 on my team who managed to handle a fight against a premium heavy tank, a whole tier higher than him, albeit in probably one of the best heavy tanks tier for tier in the game, i.e. the T29. Gremlin the 4th, big shout out to you, buddy. We're going to see if we can get through this one together. But we're going to have to deal with the Borsig on the enemy team here, who's on 5 kills, so he certainly had a great result. So now I'm going to talk through the communication that I had with Gremlin the 4th here. I'm not sure if he is Gremlin the 4th or he's Gremlin Part 4. Gremlin 4, I don't know, buddy. I'm calling you Gremlin the 4th because for me that sounds even more hilarious, like you're part of some long bloodline of gremlins. Wait a minute, a bloodline of gremlins? What do they pour water on you to? Oh, anyway, I'm going off on one here. Let's focus on the situation at hand. So I don't have many hit points. The T29, Gremlin the 4th, doesn't have many hit points either. And so that means we have to be constantly aware that if we're spotted, that the artillery is going to drop down a hammer strike on us. And even if he splashes anywhere near our vehicles, it's certainly not going to work out. So I'm discussing a plan with Gremlin right now. I'm saying that I'm going to spot for him and that he should try and use the ridge line on this position. And I'm also asking him if he has any damage to his tank. I'm asking, have you been ammo wrecked? Have you got a broken gun? Dead commander? All of these things can be very useful so you can figure out if he is going to be able to, for example, spot the Borsig. If he's got a dead commander, you need to know about that. So when you find yourself in these 2v2 situations and you have time to be able to communicate, definitely find out about the capabilities of your friends to be able to then isolate and cut down on the different positions that the Borsig might be in, or the combat capabilities of the T29. If he's ammo racked, he's probably not going to be putting in the second shot before the Borsig reloads, or indeed finishing off the GW Panther, and if his gun's broken, then he might be best at short to mid ranges. Now I'm going to be using this bush to just shut down some vision on the enemy team here. Right now I can see all the way across there at the Borsig, but more importantly, I can see towards the north. We spot the Borsig, and that allows us to pop up, put a shot into the top of his turret, 224 damage there, reducing him to 407. Now the T29 has 105mm with 320 alpha damage, so it's very unlikely that he's going to kill him in a single shot. But it looks like Gremlin the 4th is a very strong player, as he probably loads a high explosive round there. Almost, does he certainly load a high explosive round? Almost certainly, I have no idea. What would it be? 320 plus 25%. 25% of that is going to be 60. Yeah, he definitely loaded a high explosive round there to finish off the very lightly armored turreted German tank destroyer. Great play there by Gremlin the 4th. So right now, we're not spotted. I don't want the GW Panther to rush me. The worst thing that I could do right now is to be aggressive and allow the GW Panther to kill me and not have Gremlin right next to me. Because obviously then the GW Panther might be able to reload and then shoot Gremlin as well. Now, does he manage to spot me? No, he doesn't. Actually, he does as he goes up over the ridge. So right now, if you're spotted by an artillery in the open, my best bet will be to close the distance. If I close the distance, that makes that ridgeline between me and the artillery all the much more harder for him to be able to shoot over. So making a beeline straight towards him using the buildings and the ridgeline to block his line of sight and his trajectory of his shell from hitting me. Now I can flank him, get behind him, and we're going to have a pincer maneuver with Gremlin and his T-29. I load a high explosive round to put into what looks like the alien mother's turret here. The GW Panther takes the first one. Bit of a non-high roll there, and we finish him off with our second shot, securing an absolutely fantastic game for the STA-1 here. But it's not really the amount of damage that we dealt here. 3,500 is far from incredible in a tier 8 medium tank. It's great. I mean, if I could get 3,500 damage in my tier 8 medium tanks every game, then I'd be probably winning a lot more games than I do already. But it was more about the fact of the way that I spotted what was going to happen by looking at the enemy's team list, and not so much the statistics of the enemy team, but by noticing platoons of mobile vehicles and platoons of other vehicles that are still quite mobile that might make their way up onto the hill, spotting the flaws in your team and thinking about where you can take your tank to give your team the highest chance to win. And as I often say, those first 30 seconds of the battle are the most important. They're your opportunity to analyze the matchup, to be able to avoid getting yourself into an embarrassing situation where you're overwhelmed. And that quite often happens to me on my live stream when I'm answering a question in chat or of a tip that I received, or sometimes maybe I'm just on Skype sending a message to one of my friends. Those are quite often the moments where I fail to recognize a danger on the enemy team or a disadvantage they might have, which will result in some of my most embarrassing deaths. So this was an ace tanker for the STA-1, 1,273 base experience points and a high caliber. That's quite a low damage high caliber for the 3,491 damage that we dealt to the enemy team. And a big shout out also to Gremlin the 4th. Couldn't have got through that situation without you, buddy, and you certainly surprised me for handling that IS-6 so well on the enemy team. And even though we did fire a few heat rounds of that Patriot, we still make a decent 17,000 credits profit. And so hopefully you enjoyed this video, or maybe it's just useful to you. Do let me know by giving it a like if you enjoy this kind of more in-depth commentary when I'm trying to talk more about metas and tips and tricks in the game. And funnily enough, this replay happened during one of my Sunday Tech Tree showcases, and if you're lucky enough to be watching this video as it's released on Sunday, I've got another one tonight. And so come along tonight on twitch.tv/QuickyBaby, where I'm going to be playing the entirety of the Leopard 1 line, starting from tier 1 and ending at tier 10. And a big thank you to AVG Costas for suggesting the Leopard 1 line, and the 61 of you who did back him up. And also there were quite a few votes for the Leopard on Facebook as well. And if you haven't seen one of my Tech Tree showcases before, they're basically like miniature tank reviews all the way up the line, so you can find out if maybe it's a line that you're interested in, or maybe pick up some tips and tricks in tanks that you already have. And as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.